Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros alike about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am Sarah Alapin, your hostess with the mostest on the Wedding Dish Podcast, and I'm the CEO of Photos from the Harty and District Bliss. Unfortunately, today we don't have our little French bulldog friend snoring in the background because he is on a staycation. We're headed to New York later today. And instead, luckily, we have an amazing guest who is going to tell us all about her wedding, and she's created something really amazing. So I would like to welcome the founder of Better Topics. You'll find out what that is in a couple minutes. And Diana Injuries, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for having me on your podcast. I can't wait to dig into, all the interesting things we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I'm really excited. Not only have you done something really cool and created something really cool that's fun, but you also have some really cool traditions that I want to have you share with our audience. So let's start with, how did you two meet?
Well, it was the full story of me meeting my husband is quite extensive. So, guys, I would just suggest, you get your drink and sit back. It's been, how they always say, when you stop looking, you will find the one. It was that type of thing. So us meeting was literally a thing of chance, faith, or, just because we were meant to meet, basically. So at the point when we've actually met, I was already living in the UK for 6 years. And he was living in Mexico for 5 years. Bear in mind, we are both from Romania, which is Eastern Europe, from the same town. Basically, we've spent 8 years in the same town, going to high school, going to university. And as students, you kind of tend to go out in the same places. And we've never met, and we've never had any friends in common or anything.
Oh my gosh.
And then we've met like so many years later. Like after I graduated university, I came to the UK. After he finished university, he actually moved to Mexico, out of all places. And we've met back home when I went back home to visit because I was going to my cousin's wedding. And he was there because he just, got out of a relationship, because the reason why he was actually in Mexico was a girlfriend. But they broke up. So he basically went back home. And it was literally that fraction of time basically when we've met, and it was something so random, you would not believe it. My Wi-Fi was not working at home, and my parents were fine with it because anyway they would always use the desktop, and with the wire they were fine, but I really needed Wi-Fi working. So I called one of my friends. We all have that one IT guy that can help you out, and he's like, well, I'm not home, I cannot, and all of this. And I was like, but I really need this sorted. So he's like, I have a friend who might be able to help, but I'll have to check if he's free. So that friend of his was actually Robert, my husband. So he came to fix it. He tried fixing it for like 3 hours. It didn't work. We were like doing a lot of things. And the funniest thing to this day was my dad, because, we started talking as well in the meantime whilst he was doing, IT stuff. And after he left, he was like, I'll have to come back tomorrow because like I don't have any more time today, but I'll come back tomorrow and try to fix it again. And when he left, my dad, he was the funniest. He was like, I think this Wi-Fi needs fixing for at least another 3 hours tomorrow as well. which was so funny because my dad, he's like the most laid back guy ever and the calmest ever, and normally he would, he wouldn't be bothered by these things, but even he noticed there's something going on there. So, after hitting it off straight away, very like, I cannot even explain. It was an instant connection. We hit it off from the very beginning. He was funny, he was smart, he was even good looking, and all of that together. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is great. Like, everything about him I loved. And then we went out a few times, and then I came back to the UK because, my holiday was finished. And, I told him, like, why not you come to the UK for like a weekend and then visit? Because, it's like 2 hours flight, is not that far. he did that. And interestingly enough, that weekend was to this day one of our best weekends together. And the interesting thing is, we haven't done anything out of the ordinary, you know? We've done all the very usual stuff. Like, we went to the movies, we went to like an arcade place, you know, where you have a lot of games and everything. I love the fact how competitive he was getting, you know, when we were playing things.
Yes.
Um, I showed him, you know, how are the traditional British pubs and the traditional British meat pies, and you know, all these things that are quite you know, traditional in Britain. And so it was the best 2 days of our life. Even to this day, many times we remember that weekend. It was so amazing, so awesome. And then, you know, we just kept in touch, and then he decided to actually move to the UK because I was working here already. I had like a corporate job at that time, and I couldn't really move because I was physically tied to a desk basically. But because he's working from his laptop, you know, for him it was a lot easier to move over here. And he did that. So about a month later, we were officially in a relationship, and 2 months later, he proposed. So basically, 2 months into the relationship, he proposed, and 4 months later, we had our wedding.
That is fast. That's a lot
Yes.
of planning and coordinating. I mean, that's a move. That's the coordinating of just a move in general is can be a lot of work. How did it go planning a wedding in 2 months?
Well, it was
Loaded
a,
question.
you know, we've actually, so because I was in a point in my life at that time where I told him, like, you know, unless you really want a serious relationship, don't come to the UK for me. You know, like, I warned him beforehand. I was like, I don't have the years, I don't have the energy to just be your rebound person for you just to have some fun, get back to normal, and then try to figure out your life. I'm like, better, you know, stay at home, figure out your life, have fun for 3 months, go dating, do whatever, don't even tell me. And then once, you know, you're ready to plan something serious, then get in contact. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that, you know, I really like you, I want to come. And I was like, okay, sure. So just because he was already very committed to our relationship, I was extremely happy with that. Now, the fact that he proposed so soon, it was like a bonus for me. If he would have proposed in like 5 years, I would have been fine with that as well. I didn't really mind at that time. So after he proposed, you know, I was like, okay, now we have time to relax and chill and all of that. And then my mom, she was panicking. She's like, if you know, you have to think of when you're going to get married because you have to book everything in advance. And then his mom was calling us, like, have you set the date? And this and that. And I was like, freaking out at some point because I'm like, oh my God, we have so many things to sort out for the wedding. And because we were living in the UK and we were supposed to have the wedding back home in Romania because both our families were there and most of the people, it just made sense, you know, for us to have the wedding there. I was starting to freak out because I was like, I have limited annual leave in a year, you know, and I told them, like, either we get married this year, the very first date that we can find, or we leave it in few years time, because trust me, you don't want me to be stressed every holiday that we have together for us to spend it, you know, at home sorting out a wedding that will happen in 2 years, 3 years. Like, I don't want to do that with all my holidays that I have left. I would rather have it very quickly and then just enjoy the other holidays together, going somewhere, visiting, or, you know, things like that. So it was a bit of, you know, we enrolled my mom and his mom basically. So I did realize that I'll have to give up control as much as possible and just try to focus on the very important things, you know? So I had this long conversation with my mom and his mother as well, where I said the only requirements that I really, really want in our weddings are, you know, for obviously me to decide the wedding dress. I wanted a white wedding cake, a tiered white wedding cake with dark blue, with navy blue roses, you know, dripping down on it. Um, and that should be, you know, the wedding theme, basically white and navy blue, because I like the combination of those colors. I've seen them in previous weddings at friends and stuff, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. It looks so good. And We said yes, the band as well, we will organize the band that we had for the wedding. And anything else goes. Now bear in mind, we do have some traditions as well. And at that point in time, with my husband, we were implementing a more healthier lifestyle. When we were migrating towards being more vegan and everything and all of that, and leaving meat behind because we didn't really miss it, and health benefits as well. And we were having this conversation with my husband about food as well, like what type of food should we serve and all of this. And he was like, maybe, the type of food that we eat. And I was like, I understand that, as because it's our wedding, we would like to have it as we would like it. However, let's keep in mind who our guests are, you know, because I knew this from my own experience and from my parents' experience as well, that they've been to so many weddings and they've been very disappointed many times by the menu itself, because the menu was way too fancy for what they were used to. And it was way too foreign to what they were used to, So we eventually opted for a Romanian traditional menu, basically. And I left literally everything for my mom and his mom to organize. And just to give you a bit of background, in Romanian weddings, you don't really give gifts as in stuff. You don't give them stuff, or nobody has like a register and then you go and pick something up and you buy it. Nobody does that back home. What you give as gift is always money, and which is basically like a long-term loan, if you want. Because, for example, if I'm inviting, let's say, 10 families to my wedding and they come and they will give me some money, when they have any big event in the family, like an event or a christening, I will have to go as well. And then I will have to return basically that money to that day's value, So, and usually because we kind of know how the restaurants are, the menu price and everything, we always give to cover the menu and to be left with something extra as well. Basically, we think of this like start off loan for newlyweds, especially if even if they were already living together, even if they already would have things together, it's still very useful for them, because with that money you get to pay off the wedding basically, and you are left with some extra to either invest in a house, maybe in a car, or stuff around the house if you want to, or even if you want your honeymoon. So basically, in organizing the wedding, you mostly just need to give a down payment for everything, because everyone knows that just after the wedding, you will actually pay everything in full, because you're going to get money at the wedding. And there isn't such thing as you will be in debt after a wedding. That hasn't been heard of in Romanians' weddings, to be honest.
I love the way you put that, where you're giving money to help get someone to the place they want to be in whatever form that is, whether that be buy a house, invest in a car, enjoy, have a nice time together. But then that you also keep in mind, the next holiday that person has, that you are giving them the same, you're returning that. And I love
Yes.
that way of thinking, where it's you're taking something and being as generous as the person was with you. And I think that's that's a really lovely sentiment.
Yes, and it's quite interesting because so at the wedding, when they give you the gift, actually, it's in an envelope usually, and it's written the family name and how many people were there. And when you count the money, just after the wedding, you make a list for yourself. And for example, we've split it in two: who was from my side and my parents' side, and who was from my husband's side. Just because we had my parents actually had some people that they knew in common with his parents, so they just wanted to know, in case their kids are getting married, who needs to go and pay off the debt per se. And the way we've put it is, you put the date on when the wedding was, and you put at the end of the list how much is a bread, how much does a bread cost, how much is a liter of oil, and how much are these main things cost at that moment in time. So even if someone invites you to their wedding or their children's wedding in 10 years, you will be able to calculate how much is the value for those times, when you have to give back the debt. So, for example, if 5 years ago I've been to a wedding and I've paid, let's say, $100, and then 5 years later I'm inviting them to my wedding, it won't be the same $100. It will be 150 or whatever is, in today's value, basically, which I think is quite nice and quite important as well, because again, it gives you a starting point. You don't have to start off a married life being in debt.
Yeah, and it almost feels like everyone is elevating you. They're saying like, "Here, take this so you can be happy. We want to see you grow and be happy." And then you're saying, you're returning that and saying, "Here, take this, you be happy." I really love that. I think that's such a nice tradition.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, they basically sorted out everything. And I am extremely lucky to have also, my mother-in-law. She's amazing. She was very supportive of our relationship from the very beginning. And I remember she was calling me one day because she asked me, to send her a picture of how I would like the wedding cake to be. And the only picture I found was with a round wedding cake, with a tiered round wedding cake with the navy blue roses on it. And she called me one day panicking because this lady who was doing all the cakes for our weddings and the wedding cake as well didn't have like a round tray. She could do only like a square one or rectangular one. And then, and my mother-in-law, she was freaking out because, and she felt so bad in having to tell me that I won't have a round wedding cake.
Oh, bless
And
her
I
heart.
just, I just started laughing. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I don't care. It's okay. Like, even if she makes it like in a star shape, I don't really care as long as it's white and navy blue. That's what I care. And even details like should it be cream on it or should it have icing on it or what should it look like? And I said chocolate inside. That's it. And for it not to be too dry because obviously nobody likes a dry cake. And I'm like, that's it. Anything else goes. So I've realized through that process that there are so many details that people who organize their weddings put so much emphasis on, but the guests won't care about those details. Like tissues on a table, I don't care if they match everything else in the room. The flowers on the tables, I said, as long as they're in line with the theme, I don't care if they are all roses or different types of flowers. I didn't really care. I just wanted the colors to match, and that's it. And I said, even the tissues, I don't care if they're white, navy blue, pink, or red, because nobody will actually sit down at a table and think, oh my God, this tissue doesn't really go with anything. I've I've never noticed any tissues at any weddings I've been. So I understand some people, for their own peace of mind, want that level of detail to be set and organized for their weddings. But I thought for my own mental health, to be honest, and both my mother and my mother-in-laws, there's no point to stress them out with these tiny details that, again, years down the line won't matter. So we would rather focus on the important steps. So again, another side note that I would like to make is that in Romania, for example, you have to first be legally married before you're allowed to get married in a church. So if you just want to get married in a church, they won't marry you unless you have the legal certificate first.
Oh,
So
interesting.
because of that fact, and because everyone was like an hour away, there was this specific church that I wanted to be married in, and my parents are like 1 hour north and his parents 1 hour south, and it would have been a lot of commuting back and forth. We've actually had the legal ceremony 2 days before the religious ceremony. So we had that only with our parents, my brother, his brother, and his wife, and literally just a very close family. We had that at the registry. We had a very nice dinner, just the family. And then 2 days after, we actually had the traditional wedding, as we call it. And that was the point where, the night before he had to leave, he had to stay at his parents' house. And then I was getting ready at my parents' house, basically. And he had to come with a part of his wedding party, to come and basically officially ask me to marry him and ask my hand from my parents, on the day of our wedding. Another interesting tradition that we have is that when he comes, to the bride's house, basically the bride's parents' house, he's not the one talking. He has to have like a spokesperson for him, that will conduct the, let's say, ceremony and somewhat the negotiations per se. And that person will not tell you, or he will not tell my parents like straight away, oh, we came and to take your girl away or something like that. He always has to do it in a very, let's say, poetic way, and through some poems and riddles and all of this. So he cannot really be too straightforward, so he doesn't look too keen, so basically the groom doesn't look too keen in getting married, and then the parents as well, they have some comebacks as well, which are quite funny, where they're like, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't, you have to like convince us, and type of negotiation, like, we know what we have, we like our girl, we're not going to just give her away that easy. So it is funny, and it did make me tear up, and especially when I saw my mom tear up, and his mom, I was like, that's it, I'm done. He's like, didn't even start properly, and I was like, oh my god.
I love everything about this.
Yes. And so yeah, they came. Oh, and we have in weddings, usually each partner has to have godparents. So, like in some cultures, they have godparents in christenings. We have godparents in weddings as well. And these godparents usually have to already be married. And they are like your spiritual parents that should help you through married life. Like, this is their point, basically. And, if you have any struggles in your marriage, they kind of can help because they've been married longer than you have. And traditionally, if anything will happen, to the married couple, and if they have children, usually the godparents are the ones that should kind of take over the care of the children and stuff like that. So I had some godparents as well, and he had, and when he came to, pick me up basically from my parents' house, they came as well with him, and, his parents, and all the wedding party, and like, so after that, let's say, little ceremony was done, at my parents' house. Then we all had some nibbles to eat and everything. And then we set off to go to the church. And bear in mind, both me and my husband were different religions, Christians both, but slightly different, and we had to go through few hoops to be able to get married in that specific church that I wanted. The church was quite, let's say, straightforward. It's like quite a religious mass that's going on. It took like an hour and stuff, with the godparents around us, and with we have this tradition where they put like golden crowns on both our heads, my head, my husband's head, and the godparents on our sides, and they have to have these massive candles, that they hold, and then it has to be lit, and then at some point you have to go around this table that we have in the middle with stuff on it. And the priest was saying, which I thought was so funny, I just started laughing, because the traditional, things that they say in a church is like, God help them, whatever, and for this wife to always follow her husband. And both me and my husband started giggling, because I'm quite stubborn, so I was like, yeah, that's funny, and then he was like, and God help the husband as well to always take good decisions so she can actually follow him. And I was like, well, that makes more sense now. So all these things. And after the ceremony was done, then obviously we had some pictures taken, and because we had some friends that couldn't really come to the party afterwards, but they still came, to see us off at the church and stuff. And yes, after that we were off to the restaurant where we had the actual party. And here we had few interesting traditions. So the first one is, just before we actually went in, we were served with champagne, both me, my husband, and our godparents. And once we toasted and drank that, we had to break the glasses. And we had to step over the pieces of glass because um, it's something to do with luck, like they feel that broken glass, that you break it with intention, will actually help and stuff like that. There were also a few traditions that we didn't really care about, to be honest. Like, in many cultures, they say the groom should not see the wife's dress beforehand, the wedding dress, which is interesting because my husband came with me to pick out the dress. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll just disregard that, And even things like, in some cultures it's fine, and in some cultures they do say that you should not wear pearls at your wedding because you're gonna cry. And I actually had this very lovely set that I got from my mother-in-law with like pearl and like a necklace as well with one pearl on it. And it went so well with my wedding dress because the wedding dress was quite nice and a bit elegant. So I couldn't really wear too much jewelry or too big jewelry. And I thought it went very well. And then people were like, yeah, but you're not supposed to wear, pearls. I just want to tell those people, even to this day, we're still very happily married. So it's okay.
That superstition doesn't hold up for you.
No, that didn't hold up. No. So then, we walked in and then we sat down, and then people started coming in and, sitting down and everything. And the tradition is, again, that you have to greet everyone coming in. And then, obviously we had the list with the seating charts and everything. And then we started with our first dance as, husband and wife, which was very nice. Even just thinking about it brings tears to my eyes because I remember us being so happy. And even with that dance, we didn't really stress about it too much. We've seen, and I used to watch a lot these shows in TV, where the couple, they would go to wedding classes for so many months before the wedding and to try to, put up all this massive show with the very intricate dance and everything. And I was like, I don't want that. I wanted it to actually enjoy it. And again, to focus on the very important stuff for us. I understand some people say that, it's a once in a lifetime thing and you better make it, amazing and great and whatever. And I agree to some extent. But on the other hand, I didn't want to give up my own, let's say, peace, just to have this amazing show for everyone else, if that makes sense. I said, I want to enjoy the process as much as I can, and not stress about it, because it is just one night at the end of the day. It goes by so fast, to be honest. Before you know it, it's over. And yes, you will be left with memories, but then, it's not worth stressing too much over the wedding itself, because the wedding, I feel, it's only the first milestone or one milestone in a relationship. It's not the wedding that's everything, and then you're not putting in any effort anymore in your relationship. I feel that yes, you have to go through a wedding together if you want to, but then there is still the relationship that you have to take care of for many years to come. And I said, I don't want to, because there were some discussions, even with the family and with different traditions that we tried to incorporate, and some of them didn't really make sense. And we wanted to make everyone happy. And then we decided with my husband, you know what, let's just do the bare minimum that doesn't require us or anyone else around us to stress too much. Because no point to stress our mothers, 4 months before the wedding. So by the time they're at the wedding, they cannot wait for it to be done because they were so stressed, So other key points in our wedding were a tradition that we call kidnapping the bride. Now, this might sound a bit horrible, but it's actually quite funny. I know people might think, where are they taking her? Actually, they took me to a club. They took me to a club, so it was fine. Like, I didn't mind. Usually it's done by friends. they will just like not drag you out per se, but like call you outside, like, oh, I want to just tell you something, and then before you know it, they're like put in a car and they take you away. And it's a fun way, and it's done, they do it as a group basically. And they take you away for like a couple of hours, which in a way is great because you get to put your feet up for a chance. And then you get to see some clubs as well. So in countries like Romania during summer as well, especially when it's like wedding season, it's quite normal to see brides in the club dressed as a bride with like, few of her wedding party around her and like dancing off the night. It's quite normal. So yeah, whilst they took me away. Well, they waited for my husband to realize I was gone. Unfortunately, he didn't realize because he was too busy talking to people.
Oh my God, I love it.
But eventually they brought me back, and there was one spokesperson, and they have to negotiate me, basically. The people who kidnapped me, quote unquote, they have to negotiate with the groom what would he give to get me back, basically, so we can continue the wedding as normal. And whatever you negotiate, it really depends on how good friends you are, and basically you can ask for anything, and then you kind of start from there. But these friends of mine that kidnapped me, they just wanted to basically make a fool out of my husband and to entertain our guests, basically. And they asked our band to do like a collage of a lot of folk traditional Romanian music mixed with some modern music, but only for like a few seconds, and to switch it up quite quickly, and for my husband to dance on each one of them. And this was so funny to watch because I was like, peeking at it as well, because I wanted to see this. I didn't want to miss it because I knew my husband won't know how to dance on these, especially the traditional ones. And it was so funny that his godfather, who is also one of his really good friends, helped him through it. Like, none of them knew how to dance the traditional dances, but they all jumped up and down and just made a full show out of it. It was quite funny. So yes, in the end, they gave me back to my husband, and we could all continue the party till till the morning. And yes, everything after that was quite straightforward. We had food, we had a few courses, and then we had the wedding cake. And then towards the end of the wedding, when people started leaving, that is when they come to greet basically the newlyweds, so it was us, and give us the gift, which was the envelope with the money. And in return, we gave them a box of cakes, a selection of cakes that we had at the wedding as well. And we have a traditional drink, which is alcoholic, very strong drink. Is like, I don't know if some of your listeners might know what I'm talking about. It's something like an Italian grappa, but stronger. So it's basically twice as strong as vodka. And it's traditionally made basically in Romania. And we usually give out small bottles of that as well, as as a thank you for them coming and partying with us and all of that. And because my mom is from the north side of Romania, they have slightly different traditions there as well. And one of those traditions that she wanted us to implement was to have the bride's wedding, or also called the small wedding. And this meant basically having another party the second day after the main wedding. So once our wedding was done and we finally got to go home, like, early morning, we slept for like a couple of hours, and then we set off to go to my parents' house where the bride's wedding was taking place. Normally, in olden times, they used to do this second party with the leftover food from the night before. But because we had so many guests at the night of the wedding and at the small wedding as well, we literally just had to cater again for, like, let's say, a smaller party. So just think of the fact that at the main wedding reception, we had around 230 guests. And at the small wedding, which normally should be like a cocktail party type of thing, we had another 100 people and another band and,
Wow.
cakes and everything. So it was like a smaller wedding, basically. Yeah. So we did that all over again the second day.
Wow. Were you totally exhausted afterward?
I was actually pretty okay because I got to sleep a couple of hours. My parents were shattered.
Oh,
Like by the afternoon, I was talking to my mom and I realized that she wasn't listening. She was all wired up, all like, oh my God, Disney's doing people serving, all this, all that. So I was helping them as well around that. But I realized my mom was, like on and on and on because, we started the Friday before. So the main wedding was on a Saturday. We started partying on a Friday evening because many of my cousins that also live abroad came home. So we kind of had like a family gathering then, with like 30, 50 people. And then we had the wedding the next day. And then my mom basically hasn't slept in over almost 36 hours,
oh,
basically.
jeez.
So
Oh,
from my wedding, basically when they left early morning, they left to their house and they already started preparing things for the guests that were literally about to arrive any minute. So they haven't slept anything throughout the night. And next day, another party. And by the next evening, they're like, "That's it, I'm done." And they slept like 12 hours straight, couldn't wake up.
oh, jeez. Oh my gosh, you're poor. Oh my gosh. Well, I love all of these traditions. That sounds like a hoot. It sounds like the best time. I kind of wish I was there. Um, so let's fast forward a little bit. So you did the wedding, you all got married, you moved back to the UK, or you didn't move back, you went back to the UK, and then you did something kind of cool. So you communication is clearly very important. You were talking at the beginning of the episode about how you told your husband before he moved to the UK that you didn't want to, be a rebound, and you were very honest and open and transparent. So out of this love of communication, you built something kind of cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what you founded?
Yes. So, just again to give a bit of background, to your listeners, this idea came from the fact that both me and my husband love board games, first of all, and second of all, we've both educated ourselves in relationships because we had so many failed relationships in the past. We said, okay, this is like not working out. Let's study on it a bit. Um, and we had this commitment to make this relationship a great one. So we both understood from the very beginning that if we want a great relationship, we both have to put in effort into it and work on the communication as much as possible. Because, once you start talking with your partner, you can sort out so many issues, um, and avoid so many discussions and arguments. So again, because we love board games as well, we got some so-called card game for couples, and we were very disappointed with them because they were not games. Basically, there wasn't anything you could play with it. Basically, they were just one-off questions printed on a piece of paper. And also because we were already together for a while and we were already married, we're like, these don't even make sense anymore, for us. Like, so many questions were like, what's your favorite ice cream? And I'm like, if you don't know after all this time how much I love chocolate, we have such a big problem that these cards cannot really help us. So we bounced this idea of creating our own game. We've bounced it around, and how would that even look? So we started working on creating the questions first, and we came up with this idea of the Better Topics card game, basically. And what we've done is we've curated a lot of repeatable questions, and we took a lot of questions that we actually asked each other and still ask each other regularly in our relationship, and modify them a bit to make them more repeatable and also suitable for different couples out there, you know. And alongside that, we've basically put together, we've took all the elements that we like in other board games and we've put them together in the better topic card games basically. So you have the luck element depending, you know, what type of cards you're dealt basically. And usually in board games, if there is anything to do with luck, I'll win hands down, like especially dice or anything like that. It's even creepy at some point, you know, how many times I actually win against my husband. And then you have the strategy element to it, where it depends how you're playing your cards, you know, because whoever gets rid of their cards first, that person wins the game. And this is my husband's field, basically. Anything that is to do with strategy, he will definitely win. I'm just there along for the ride. Um, and then also, you know, to make it even more fun, we've added what we call modifier cards. So these are cards like cancel the question, reverse the question, or so for example, when I'm playing with my husband, if he thinks he got me locked in, you know, with like a bit more difficult question, I can always reverse that if I have the card, you know, and actually have him answer it instead of me. And
That's so fun.
and then, you know, because we basically could go as crazy as we wanted with it. We also added its own reward system. So whoever wins the game, they gets to choose their own reward, which is mostly things to do either for each other or together as a couple, because this is what we wanted to encourage couples, you know, to have those important discussions, but in a game like setting, you know, so there isn't that stress there, or they don't feel like they have to be defensive. It's not that you know, that we need to talk type of setting, but instead of a playful setting where people are more relaxed, more open, and more willing to be honest about their answers and also do stuff together.
I love that. I think that's so much fun. I Anything that you can gamify, there's a place in my heart for that. I'm also a big lover of games and pranks and things. So, and I'm competitive, but in like, you know, not in like a angry way. I'm competitive in like the fun kind of like I'm excited for this way. So, I feel like that would just be such a hoot. I love that you did that.
Thank you.
So with the Better Topics card game, is it something that is only for couples, or is it something that you could play with like your best friend?
It's interesting that you say that. We've meant so when we actually created the game, we had couples in mind, us being a couple, and interestingly enough, because we also had to play it so much, so we could iron out any issues that they might arise, you know, in playing it. We actually had a couple of Christmases ago some friends visiting. You know, there were two best friends visiting us, and they asked us the same, like, can they play it? You know, just to see how the game is. And I was like, well, just give it a try. But there were few questions that are literally just around couples, but if you take out those questions and you're still left with so many, because it has 56 questions altogether, so you know, even if you take out a few, you will still have enough to play with. They took those very specific questions, you know, specific to a relationship, they took them out and then they started playing it. And because they were good friends, they actually could share, you know, all of the things that the game was asking of them.
That's so fun. I was envisioning myself playing that with my best friend since I was 6 years old, and she and I would totally have fun doing that.
I'm sure you would, because you know, at that point we realized actually that being in a relationship is pretty much similar to being in a very good friendship. And I do believe that, you know, to be able to be in a really great relationship with someone for years, you do have to have a very tight knit friendship with them as well.
I 100% agree. Um, that's amazing. I love it so much. And that's all we have time for today, but I want to know, where can people find the Better Topics card game?
So they can find the physical card game on our website, which is bettertopics.com, or on Amazon, UK, US, and Australia. And also for those who are not very keen on physical card games, we have the Better Topics app, and they can find this on both Apple Store and Google Play Store as well.
So fun. I didn't realize it was also an app. That makes it so easy to just start right now.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Diana, for being here. It has been so lovely learning about your wedding and hearing about all the fun traditions and how much, family played such an important role and culture. I love everything about it.
Thank you so much again for having me today on your podcast. I had so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad that you were here. And thank you all for tuning into the Wedding Dish podcast. You definitely need to swing over and check out the Better Topics game, either in the App Store. You have your phone in your hand, I'm guessing, because you're probably listening to this on your phone. So you can check it out there, or you can swing over to bettertopics.com. And while you're there, if you want to check out the Wedding Dish, you can go to theweddingdishpodcast.com or follow us on Instagram at the Wedding Dish Podcast. We'll have show notes. We'll link out to everything from today. You can also apply to be a guest, or you can grab the transcripts because we're committed to accessibility here at the Wedding Dish. And don't forget to tune in next week. We'll be interviewing another amazing guest. And until then, cheers.